Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's video. I thought I would take a chance to answer a question that came up recently, which I feel like is relevant to this channel and to my music, and I know I've heard various permutations and combinations of this question previously, so I thought I would actually just take a chance to answer it today. This question comes from a session that I did for Manitoba Opera recently. They're doing an online interview session with artists that have been a part of their DEEP program, their Digital Emerging Artist program. And so John Tessier has been interviewing alumni of this program to talk about some of the content that we're making online. And from this session, somebody sent this question. So Lois A said, "One question I would have asked Lizzy is how did she know she wanted to be an opera singer, and how did she transition from folk music?" So I'll try to talk about that today and hopefully keep it relatively succinct. I grew up as a child singing in a children's choir. At a young age, I knew that I felt a very strong connection to my voice and that I liked the music and that I felt it was a very direct connection between me wanting to express something and how it felt coming out of my voice. But I only sang in a children's choir for a few years. I took violin lessons growing up as well, and I fiddled at family functions. And relatively early, I started to get work as a fiddle player. So that's what I started doing. I was playing as a side musician for other artists. And at that point, if you had asked me, do you want to be an opera singer? I would have said no. However, what I did know at that point was that I wanted to sing. So I knew that when I played the fiddle or the mandolin, at the time I was playing quite a bit of mandolin, or even the guitar, I was able to express myself, but it didn't feel the same as when I sang. And I think the easiest way for me to describe that is that if it felt that my artistic expression, it was a very direct link from that to my voice, I've always felt that there was like an extra little box that it needed to travel through before coming out when I was playing my instruments. So although I was working as an instrumentalist, I did already know that I wanted to sing. So I did start singing some harmonies for some of the artists that I was working with. And I started to want to share my own music even more. And I wanted to sing more. So I started putting together my own groups. I started putting together my own concerts and booking little tours here and there so that I could sing and share the music that I wanted to share. So at that point, I think still, if you had asked me, do you want to be a classical singer? I probably would have said no, but I knew that the singing was the right path for me moving forward. Now, if I fast forward a little bit from there, I'm working quite a bit. I've transitioned to full-time working as a musician, and I'm doing concerts. At this point, I'm teaching, I'm playing background gigs, I'm doing lots of different things. I've also completed a university degree in something completely different, in sociology. But at this time, I have found a couple of recordings that I start to listen to faithfully. One of them is Cecilia Bartoli's recording of Italian art songs, Se tu m'ami. One was a Barbara Bonney recording of, I think, Schumann Lieder, and then Renee Fleming recording of great arias or something, great soprano arias. So I was listening to these recordings a lot and really moved by the music. I was familiar with this music because both my parents are classical musicians, so I've grown up going to the opera and going to concerts. It's a language that I'm familiar with. But all of a sudden it started to feel like these composers were writing music about how I felt inside. So it was connecting very strongly with me, and I started just basically singing along with these recordings. I know that's not the greatest way to start thinking about your classical music career, but I did. I wanted to sing that music. So at this point, I decided that I'm going to take some singing lessons, that this might be a good thing to do, even for my folk singing. Just start taking some voice lessons, learn some technical things, how to use the voice more efficiently, more effectively, making sure that we're singing in a healthy manner. So at this point, I'm still living in Edmonton, and I managed to connect with a wonderful teacher in Edmonton named Eva Bostrand. And Eva has a very holistic approach to the voice. She runs a couple of choirs specifically for people who think they can't sing, and of course they can. So I started taking some lessons with her, just sort of dipping my toe in the water a little bit, and I was singing some Handel. I sang some of the Schumann songs that were on that Barbara Bonney recording, and it felt very good. It felt very right. So I think at this point I started to have this sense inside that this was a good fit for me. It was just a glimmer. And if I were to use the term of voice, it would have been a very, very quiet voice, but that very quiet voice that you know is true. So at this point, I am now still touring with my folk music. I have the sense that the classical music is a good fit for me, but I'm also becoming aware that people's perceptions of what you do can affect your career. So I'm aware that if I start doing some classical singing, that perhaps people will think, oh, well, you're not really a fiddle player. I was aware that these were two very separate worlds. I also had a concern at that time that taking operatic voice training would change my voice, so that when I went to go sing my folk music, I would sound differently. And that was worrying to me because I still felt that my folk music represented who I was and how I wanted to be sharing my music. Now, after 2 years of studying with Eva, my husband got into school at the University of Calgary, so we moved to Calgary. And at this time, I wasn't able to connect with a voice teacher in Calgary. I largely started working on my own, just starting to learn some repertoire that I was interested in. At this point, I was still singing as a soprano. So I learned, for example, all the arias from Handel's Messiah. I learned the song cycle of Berlioz's Les Nuits d'été. And I sang regularly on my own, trying to work on the things that I had learned with Eva, and fostering that music and that way of singing, but just on my own, and I wasn't doing anything publicly at this point. However, over these 3 years, it became much more clear to me that it was a part of my voice and my artistic expression that I needed to do something with. I really wanted to do something with. So enter my sister. My sister is also a musician, a fabulous musician, and a visual artist. And aren't we grateful for those people in our lives who sometimes just tell us the truth? And I was talking to her one day about classical singing and how I wanted to do it. This was an ongoing conversation between the two of us. And she finally said to me one day, she said, Lizzy, you just keep talking about this. You haven't actually done anything. When are you going to actually do something? So after some tears for that very honest feedback, which was true, we hung up, and the first thing I did was I thought she is absolutely right. So I went online. I didn't really know how to move forward in this area. In my folk music, I had been working independently, booking my own shows, making my own recordings, putting together my own band, a very sort of an independent music approach, right? That we can just do these things. I didn't know how to do that in classical music. So I thought, well, I need to do some sort of program so that I get a sense if this is a right fit. I already have an undergraduate degree in something else. I wasn't really interested in doing another undergrad degree in music. So I started looking up summer programs. What is happening in the world for operatic training in the summer? And I came across COSI, which is the Center for Opera Studies in Italy, which has changed its name recently to COSA, but it's a program run by Daryl Edwards in Toronto. And I saw that they had, I think it was 3 weeks in Italy, a training program in opera, and the deadline to apply was actually coming up, so I could make that deadline. So I sent in an application and I explained my situation and said, I don't have any operatic experience, but I have this whole area of music and a career where I hope you will look at sort of the dedication that I've put into this area of my music and the detail with which I approach that music. And I hope that you will see that I'm serious about how I would approach classical music as well. So Daryl Edwards gave me an audition. He was very generous and open and encouraging. And in the end, he gave me a small role in one of the operas that they were putting on that summer. So I went on a trip. My husband at this point had been placed in Winnipeg for work just before going on this trip. So we moved to Winnipeg. We immediately went to Europe. I visited my sister who lives in France. And then I went to Italy for 3 weeks to enter the world of opera and see if it was a good fit. The short version of this story is that it was a good fit. I felt a little bit like I'd found my people. I enjoyed the people that I was spending time with. Again, the music was very rewarding. I enjoyed the challenge of learning the music and all the things that you had to sort of get in place, technical things, your languages, your acting. It was very fulfilling even at this early stage. So after that program, I felt more confident that no, I need to find some way to have this be part of my life. And when I came to Winnipeg, I sent an email to Tracy Dahl, and kind of like my interaction with Daryl, I just explained my situation, that I am interested in studying opera. I don't have much experience, but please look at my previous work. So I don't know really why Tracy said yes, but I sent this sort of cold call email and she agreed to take me on as a student. So I started studying privately with her for a year. At this point, she recommended that I apply to the post-baccalaureate diploma at the University of Manitoba. And that way I could get some drama coaching, some diction coachings. So I did that. I did it over 2 years because I was still touring with my trio and releasing music in my folk world. I was using a separate name. So all of my classical things, I had a separate name just so that as I was gaining some experience in this area, people weren't totally confused by what I did, and just give me some time to sort of get my feet under me. In 2020, I decided that both of these parts of my life just needed to exist together. And so I brought both of these projects together under one name, Lizzy Hoyt. And as a result, I have things like this YouTube channel, which shares both areas of my music. But that is my experience anyways of making the transition from working in Celtic and folk music to also working in classical music and opera. I hope that sort of story answers your question, Lois. If any of you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I will go through and maybe see if I can do another Q&A video like this at another time. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!